them in a minute. Well, Famous and Fabulous is today we're going to meet two powerful supergroups who are they're both famous and fabulous. Both are #1 hit makers and powerful performers who made quite a difference in the creation and formation of pop music and funk. Two completely different musical styles, but both changed the face of pop music and performing. Now, being famous and fabulous has its highs and lows, no pun intended, Family Stone. There are lots of egos in a band, as you know, between songwriters, lead singers, relationships. Money and fame, of course, always comes into play as well. So this afternoon we're going to get some stories and insight from two of the most influential bands of the 60s and early 70s. Now, both Sly and the Family Stone and the Guess Who had rather parallel careers as far as the Billboard charts go. They were both on the charts from about 66 to the mid to late 70s, and both continue to play for us today. So let's meet them. Let me bring them out. First of all, please welcome a band that's credited as being the first interracial gender mixed group in rock history. Their leader, original leader Sly Stone, took a lot of heat for it, but he refused to change the legendary lineup, and thankfully, because they gave us 3 #1 hits, 5 top 10s, 10 top 40 hits. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1993. Please welcome the Family Stone! Papa J, Greg Erico, and Sly's daughter, Fun. By the way, I was given this bit of information that Fun is the first daughter, the first child of 2 Rock and Roll Hall of Famers, who also is a performer. So you know Cynthia Robinson and Sly Stone. This is the DNA and the amazing singer and performer, and she's beautiful, and we're so happy she's here. Guys. This band from Winnipeg, Canada, formed in 1965. Their first single was a #1 in Canada called Shakin' All Over, made a little noise in America. In 1966, they changed their name to the Guess Who with a question mark at the end. Maybe they weren't sure, but they eventually got rid of that. They dropped that in the late 60s, and throughout the 70s, they had enormous success with such hits as These Eyes, Laughing, and Undone, Share the Land, Clap for the Wolfman, Hand Me Down World, and so many others. Please welcome to the stage the Guess Who! Gary Peterson, original member drummer. All right, Derek Sharp, lead singer. Welcome, my friend. Rudy Sarzo, this band played bass with Quiet Riot and Ozzy Osbourne. He's got some stories. And Leonard Shaw. Welcome, my friend. Have a seat. Y'all got your microphones? You want to say hello to the audience? Everybody down there?
Hello, audience. Hola. I'm not sure I like it up front. Hola. This is like the light.
The lights are so we can see you, Gary.
It's nice and quiet back there.
It is nice and quiet. Well, in an hour you'll get to go back there and hide out, but we're going to have you back on stage before long playing live with the band. So we're very excited to have you guys here. Thanks for, it's 2 o'clock. Thanks for getting up early. Crack of noon or 1 o'clock or whatever it turned out to be.
Break of noon.
Crack of noon. Well, I want to start with the Family Stone and Jerry, and Jerry and Greg and Fun. We've met before many times, and you guys have been on the rock and roll cruises here with us, the Flower Power Cruise. You have one of the most legendary, if not the most legendary performance ever at Woodstock in 1969 on August 17, I believe. I think it was a helicopter brought you in at 3:30 in the morning.
Some of us.
Some of you, okay. Can you tell us about that performance and about that memory? Do you have a great memory of that Woodstock performance, of what that was like?
Absolutely, I just can't remember what I had for breakfast. Yeah, it was, well, there wasn't enough room in the helicopter for everybody, so some of us drove in limousines through that incredible maze of psychedelia there, and it was really great getting there. It was kind of a ridiculous place to play. It was mud up to our knees. And in those days, they only had one stage for everybody. So you had to wait for them to tear down the whole stage. And then it was your turn. So we got there at 10 to play at 10, and we went on at the crack of 3 a.m. in the morning. And it was pretty exciting to see all those sleeping bags. And then we started playing, they got up. And then just the rest is history. It was great. Greg, why don't you tell them something about it?
My first helicopter ride in Vietnam, one of those green with no doors, nylon, like a nylon net. So I was scared to death, right? But I do remember distinctly when we came over the ridge, the hill, and then there was the farm was on this whole, I don't know how many acres it was, but it went up like a bowl, hill, top. The stage was down at the bottom. And I remember just seeing it was a haze, and purple haze, yeah, it was a haze, it sure was. You could smell it coming. And it was just amazing seeing, I had never seen that many people. I didn't know it was people at first. I didn't know what I was seeing. It was just like this blur, and then when it came into focus, I said, there's a lot of people. And you could just, it vibrated, it was an energy coming off of this scene. It was really amazing. You could feel it when you land and got out. You could feel the presence of all the people and the spirit of the whole thing. It was pretty incredible. And needless to say, when we performed, that energy played into our performance. They were giving it to us, and we were giving it back to them, and it just kept going higher and higher and higher. It was pretty amazing to feel that.
Talk about that set list, because 5 of those 7 or so songs turned out to be monster hits. Did you have any idea that they were going to have that kind of success? I mean, to have a set at Woodstock that's full of hits was crazy, right?
We were just doing what we usually did, and there was two, I say it's probably 2 performances and things that happened to us that really the next day changed our lives. That was the Ed Sullivan Show performance and Woodstock. Those 2 things had a very profound impact on your presence, and your people being aware of you and you connecting with the audience.
Yeah, I mean, with no social media back then, Ed Sullivan reached, 50, 70 million.
Yeah, and hence that's what happened with the Beatles, and the Beatles did it, and Elvis Presley. And I remember watching those shows when I was a kid. Both of those, first-time presentations. It was pretty powerful.
Let me ask the Guess Who, because you guys started out with a different name, Gary, and then you changed the name of the group, and your first single was a big hit in Canada. But tell us about your beginnings.
Well, we didn't really change the name. The president of Quality Records in Canada, they leased the tape to Scepter Wand in the United States, in New York. And as it was the time of the British invasion, he didn't think that they would play a Canadian band, get lost in the shuffle. So they said, well, why don't we just put on the label, Guess Who, ? And so we hated the name, by the way, because it was too close to the Who, and confusion would arise, which it did to this day, because I think even as late as 4 years ago, somebody came after the show and said, hey man, you didn't play your greatest song, Squeezebox. So, I mean, you have to be on something to listen to a whole show like that.
They brought that. No, the funny thing is, you forgot to tell them they also brought the album.
So we have no idea what they were listening to.
What kind of drugs are you on?
So once that record was played all over and it became number 19 in Cashbox and Billboard, and we have something unique for that, which is a gold, not a gold, but a silver 45 record, which I cherish very highly. And so once the name was branded, you can't call yourself Chad Allen and the Expressions, which was the name at the time. So
Now, would you say that your band in the beginning days were more of a live performing band or more of a recording to try to make hits? What were you really focusing on?
Both, I think. You know, our new album, which will come out in September, I listen to that album all the time, and it really is a reflection of what we listened to and who influenced us during our early years and even up to today, you know, and so we were a great copy band when we first
You were a
started.
cover band on the front end?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Until we started having our records, and then slowly the cover tunes would go out and our tunes would replace them. Kind of like now.
A lot of bands, when they do sound check, they also do cover tunes and sound check. Do you guys do that as well, Derek?
Yeah, we used to play Lucille at our set a lot for years. We might have done it the last cruise. I don't know.
Actually, it's available for download on iTunes, I think.
Yeah, we did some other stuff. But
Yeah.
I was telling somebody at lunch today, like you do, he was asking me about that. And there's only so many songs we can do in 90 minutes. And, you know, he's asking me if we do any of this kind of album track stuff, deep cuts or whatever you call it.
I mean,
I'm like, you can, but you know, we have a record deal, a publicist, a record company, all this stuff going on now, and we have to promote the new song. The funny thing about the new songs sometimes, I guess I'm rambling now, right? Is that a lot of people think that they're the old song because they sound so familiar, the style.
Yeah, like a retro feel to the
Well,
band.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I've had quite a few people say that to me. I love that old. What album is it on? Not.
It's rare, but it's coming out, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we have so much material. I mean, we're not even doing a number 5 hit in the show, which is Star Baby. So
Yeah.
we kind of have to pick and choose.
They pull it out once in a while.
If they pay us extra.
If everybody's in their seats 5 minutes early, maybe we can squeeze it in. Jerry and Greg and Fun, I want to ask you, and more Jerry and Greg, we know that, I don't know the complete details, but we know Sly was a partier. And he liked to have a good time, and he was sometimes hard to find. Sorry, daughter, cover your...
Who is it?
Did you attempt to rein him in, or were you just all doing the same thing, or you know, he would show up or not show up, or you had to wait? Tell me what it was like, you know, dealing with this massively talented performer, songwriter who changed the face of pop and funk, who was, you know...
We sent his daddy with him. Big Daddy used to bring him in.
Big Daddy, he was kind of the handler?
Absolutely, and he carried a big flashlight, and we never got robbed. And he'd always say, like, he's gonna come now, you can ask Mama. You know, and he would get him there, and then when he had the lyric, sometimes it was kind of hard to find. Because the lyric could go anywhere, you know.
The lyric could go anywhere. And I know that one of the songs, or two of the songs at Woodstock went like 10 minutes each or more even, right? You guys just jammed on them and whatever you're feeling at the time, right? So, and tell us about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction too. That was in 1993. And Hall of Famers?
That's before they built it. They built it in 1995. And now, even now, when we go to the Hall of Fame now, they send a limo for us, and they take us underneath the whole thing to the vault. They show us all kind of stuff. They're very, very respectful from the president on down. And we couldn't find nicer people than them, you know. And so, and when they met Fun, we got Fun there, you know, showed the pictures of her mama, and they absolutely loved Fun's mama, Cynthia Robbins.
They do have a memorial. There's a memorial room with some of the artists that have passed, and she's prominently
Deservedly
in there.
so. She's
Yeah.
amazing
Yeah.
photos. And what Fun, can you tell us a little bit about Sly these days, and how's he doing?
He's doing quite well. He's writing and just as crazy as he always has been.
What is crazy like for him now, as being in our generation?
Okay, one time we were hanging out, and he decided that he wanted to teach me how to defend myself. And so, mind you, he has on a purple velvet pimp costume. So he gets a straight pen and he says, "What you do is you let a motherfucker walk up on you and you stick him. Okay, I got that one. And then, so he goes another one right here. He grabs a lighter and he grabs the hairspray before I can tell him, "Daddy, I know that one." He lights it up and poof, his whole arm is on fire. I'm like, "Daddy!" He's like, I'm all right. It's all melted and black and smoking. He's like, "Let me show you another one." I'm like, "Take the jacket off first." Dang. So yeah, he's just crazy.
So he's not into gardening and watching Judge Judy. Okay, but so he's still pretty great. He's writing music, and does he have anything coming out or any plans to produce or mix or do something?
He's been planning on releasing quite a few songs, but he's such a perfectionist that he just and he write another one, and it's never ending.
Well, Jerry, would it take a band member like yourself or Greg to convince him that song is good enough? Let's record it. A lot of artists and writers, they wait and they perfect, but just get it done, right?
No, he don't listen to nobody. What it is, he knows that we love him, and whatever he does, we're gonna play. We have over 300 songs, you know, and we play maybe 12 on our show because we have to play the greatest hits and stuff like that. And just like the Guess Who, you're expected to play certain songs.
Did you guys squeeze Star Baby in tonight?
Yeah, well,
No, they're by the pool tonight.
If we're playing tonight, most of us won't be here. Because it's Mickey Dolenz.
No, I'm asking Greg and Jerry if they're by the pool tonight. They can play. I'm asking them. No,
yeah, we'll jam
to hear that.
Yeah, that'd be an
here one time, you know.
interesting mix of that song. Guess who? I want to ask you. The story is legendary about American Woman. Huge #1 hit, American Woman, right? And I remember as a kid, I had the 45. I still have it, and I remember turning the music up really loud on my parents' little record player and listening to the fade out to hear exactly what was being said at the very end. There was something like American Chick and I would just listen over and over to that song to really figure out the meaning. I mean, I know there was war references and something, but can you give us a little bit of background on it, Gary? That song, American Woman. Who is it for?
It's kind of the way it happened was that we've done a long tour of the United States and, you know, gone through a lot, seeing what was going on down here. Coming from Winnipeg, we didn't have any of those kind of problems yet, and it kind of took us by surprise. And I think one night we were back in Toronto in a curling club, playing 2 sets.
You mean as in the Olympics, we just watched the curling?
That's right.
The guy doping for the curling?
We lost. But anyways, all the people from RCA Records were there. You know, it was like big party backstage, and we came off stage, couldn't find Burton Singer, and it was time to go back on, and we just went up there. And I had been listening to Buddy Miles and the Electric Flag, and he played double bass drums on that big album they had. And I was listening to those patterns, so I just started playing that on stage, and we started playing. He heard the music, he came up, and he sang some sort of lyrics. We don't know what they were today, because the song then became like the telephone game. We played it every night, it changed. We played it, it changed. And then finally it changed, and we said it's time to go and record it. That's really the story. And as far as what it's about our experiences and what we saw down here during the Vietnam War, and the race. We were actually in Chicago during the Democratic Convention. We were in New York, 9/11. We were in Alaska for the Valdez spill. So I don't.
Can you let us know when you're going to be back in America?
I think you should all leave the ship right now. I think, though, as observers of life, you're there to witness and see and take those stories back to the rest of the people in the country.
Derek, as the lead singer of the Guess Who, what were your influences to sing the way you do it? You sound fantastic, by the way. Your vocals are spot on, the way you have the music and the hits. And I love what you do on stage. What were your inspirations to become what you are today? What did you listen to? What did you play?
That's a loaded question. Food, coffee. I always wanted to do this since I was a little kid. I told my mother I wanted to do that. I heard Rock Around the Clock on the radio, and I said I want to do that, and I never stopped. I taught myself how to play guitar when I was 10, and I kept going. I kept learning things, and what was the question? How do I fit into this?
What were you listening to? We talked about Little Richard.
Well, you know, I like everything. I love, when I'm at home, I actually listen to Brazilian music, and I don't like noisy rock and roll unless I'm playing it. You know what's funny is actually somebody told me last night that some old guy was sleeping during our set. And I'm like, how is that possible?
It's beautiful music for our generation.
How is that possible? You know, we're running around, Rita's running around, we're loud and everything. How can you do that? But anyways, back to the question. I like everything. I like the Beatles. I like everything you like. Yes. We like the same music, him and I.
I think everybody in this band likes the same music.
Yeah, I like jazz, I like rock. I mean, obviously
classical.
I'm more of a rock guy, but I love classical music. I played saxophone, bass, piano. I play a bunch of instruments. So,
and drums.
And drums, but I always loved singing because I'm half Italian. Right? So you know us people, right? We sing all the time. We start drinking wine at 4 o'clock. My great-grandfather would start Friday night and end on Sunday. He'd have the accordion in his hand, he'd fall asleep.
Oh, I saw it in your show last night.
Yeah, nothing's changed, really. I hope that's a good answer.
It's a great answer, thank you. Speaking of being wild and partying, like Fun's dad, Rudy Sarzo, bass player, has played with Quiet Riot and Ozzy Osbourne. So this is pretty tame compared to that. Give us a little bit of the temperature back there.
Thank God it's tame. I mean, I can't, at my age, I can't handle it. Back then, boy, it's great to be looking at here so much, flower power. There's actually Black Sabbath, and since you asked about Ozzy, started out as a hippie band called Earth. And then the guys in the band went to a theater and they watched a scary movie called Black Sabbath, and they decided to make scary music because they wanted to scare people, And exactly, Boris Karloff. And so it became Black Sabbath, and everything about the music had to be scary from that point on, And I gotta tell you, they're the least scary people off stage that you could ever imagine. To spend, a couple of tours with Ozzy in the same bus, and Sharon and Randy Rhoads and Tommy Aldridge, and travel around the country and Canada and tour with them around the world. It was magnificent, but it was really not scary. Even though Ozzy, he had been around for a long time by the time that I started playing with him, like 15 years, so he had a certain lifestyle. very 60s, 70s lifestyle. In the beginning of the 80s, the 80s hadn't really started yet. I really don't think it started until like MTV came along and changed everybody's lives, like especially with me with Quiet Riot. We used to have Come and Feel the Noise on every
Sure.
half hour on MTV, which is what made the album the first #1 debut by a heavy metal band, on Billboard magazine. So, things have really changed, and it's almost hard for me to look back at the way things were 35 years ago, because I really, I don't drink, I don't do anything, I just play music and be happy and meditate. And, keep it simple. Because it's always been around the music, and everything else got in the way of the music. It makes for some great stories. As a matter of fact, I wrote a book about my days with Ozzy Cole, Off the Rail. You can get it on Amazon, and it answers the *1 question I get asked when I travel, which is what was it like to play with Randy Rhoads, a guitar player who died tragically in a crash, airplane crash in 1982, March 19. And so, one of the reasons why I wrote the book is so I really don't have to relive it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, even though it was really rewarding to sit down and go back to memory lane and travel, through that time. But, it's always now, and there's no better time than right now, right here, with all of you, all of us.
We're lucky that you're here, and we're really lucky that you're playing with us. Leonard, how did you hook up with these guys, and what's it been like for you on this ride? Leonard Show.
Well, I grew up in Winnipeg, and just a couple of blocks away from some of the people who wrote some great songs, Burton and Randy. I used to see them on the bus, and just a few blocks away from Gary, we lived in a small north end part of the Winnipeg. So growing up with Guess Who music was an inspiration to me. Of course, being from Winnipeg, Canada, 700,000 people, a smaller town in Canada. Hearing that music on the radio was, pretty exciting. And the band actually, I believe, displaced the Beatles from the top of the charts with American Woman. All that time in music was very exhilarating. And I was fortunate to come up in a musical family. Both my parents were musical. And they got me lessons, got me started at an early age. My ear developed. I ended up playing in the school band and, started playing in rock bands during that time of my life. And when I, saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, like some of us may have, my dad actually recorded with his monaural reel-to-reel tape recorder the performance with the microphone up against the speaker of the TV. It was, my house was buzzing. The Beatles changed the world, right, with their music, let's face it. And changed the way rock and roll was played after that forever, in a good way. And when I saw Joe Cocker in Mad Dogs and Englishmen, I realized, wait a minute, these guys are traveling around, playing music. It's like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So that's how I got inspired to play music. And when I met Gary through a guitar player who was in the band at the time, a good friend of mine, Dale Russell. He introduced me to Gary and the band. I heard the band, and that was in 1990. And I joined the band, started touring in 1991. I've been here ever since, playing with some great musicians. The gentleman on stage with me especially. Joey, love playing with these guys. And traveling and playing music is, I feel very blessed to be here with all of you, enjoying this wonderful experience.
Jerry, I want to get back to you because I had heard a legendary story of you in a hotel room.
Not true.
And Sly in another room. And what was the quickest way to get to his room from
It
your
was
room?
actually Larry Graham.
Oh, it was Larry Graham. Right, he was in the band originally, that's right.
Yeah,
It was Larry Graham.
He was in the room next to me about 40 stories up, and we're out in the balcony talking, and he said, wait a minute, man, I want to come over to your room. So I climbed over to his room, 40 stories up, outside. And we used to party a lot back in those days. That's why I'm blessed that Greg and some of the other family members, they just gave me surprise 75-year birthday party.
Nice.
I have no idea, especially with those days given how much we used to party, how I made it to 75. Thank you.
Any close calls trying to get out of a venue or trying to get out of a concert situation? I'll start with Jerry, but the guest too as well.
Absolutely. You know, Newport was crazy. They oversold the concert, and there was 30,000 people outside trying to get in. And we did a song called "You Can Make It If You Try." And Sly was doing "You Can Make It If You Try." And so they did. And they charged the place. They came in, they tore up our bus. We ended up taking cabs back to New York City because they could make it if they tried.
Greg, anything to add to that, or your memories of that from a different perspective?
Let's see. I actually just talked to Jerry on that one. I remember them being in the bus and the gate was being torn down. There was this guy, a friend of mine from San Francisco. He had a big music store back there, and he came back to Newport with us. And he's going, "Let's get out of here! Let's get out of here!" Because I mean, they was writing. You know, they were writing. They tore it down to get in. And I said, "No, well, we can't leave because we were surrounded by police cars and traffic and a lot of people." And he said, it'll be all right. As soon as the music starts, it'll be all right. And it was. I remember Miles Davis had come back there to watch the group. And he played it. This was George Weems' Newport Jazz Festival, which they do at Newport every year. It's famous, you know. And Miles used to play every year when it was traditional jazz. Well, this year, George Wein had kind of stepped out and wanted to, you know, bring it up into current times, and he wanted to put some more modern music, not just traditional jazz. So he had hired us to be there. And Miles, we found out, was a fan, so he came early and hung out there. And so did a lot of the other people. I guess the mix of all the different genres of music and everything was exciting for everybody. So a lot of people showed up and they oversold it, and that's how that all became. But it turned out good.
Jerry, I mentioned this at the beginning of the show, that Sly and the Family Stone is really legendary in the fact that you were racially integrated and male gender and female integrated, and that there was a time where the band got a lot of heat for that. And how were you able to maintain the lineup, and what type of heat were you getting? What was going on back then?
I was just trying to stay alive. Because in certain times we would play in Mississippi, and where it was predominantly African American, and they were not used to it. And they opened up our limos and stuff, and they were ripping gold chains off of people's necks. And I was at a few small venues with Sly. We were just walking through, and I got hit in the back of the head, and Sly would turn around and get in front of me because he was a black belt karate guy, and he defended me, and he took me out the balcony of the building, and we climbed down the outside balcony. So that was just a few things. But on the good side, I think we're about the first band that would play like at Cobo Hall in places where there was predominantly one race or the other. And I believe we're one of the first bands to play for mixed audience. The music was for everybody. We weren't playing it for one race. And Sly was very visionary. And that's why he wrote so good that I quit writing. It just made me sick. You know, he was so good that I thought I was a pretty good writer at the time. But his words and his visions were so far beyond most of the people at that time that it was an honor to be part of the band.
I think that most groups, most musicians feel the same way as you. Certainly the Beatles worshipped, Little Richard and Chuck Berry, and they didn't see any racial boundaries. And it's the public or the people that protest that feel it's the wrong thing to do. But I mean, the music is all so mixed, and the way you have combined funk with pop music and hit music certainly is is the reason enough to have the lineup that you had back then.
Madison Square Garden was a good example. It was a very mixed audience, and I believe we still hold the record for selling it out 13 times, and for the large room. And that was back in the day, you know, and it's been over 50 years for me. The band is. I still love the music. And y'all are here, you see it?
We're a captive audience, but we love it. Guess who? I noticed you guys were looking over this way when we were talking about escapes and crazy things. Derek, it sounds like you have a story, or Gary? Do you have a story about, like, you know, a live concert, you know, getting away and, you know, trying to get everything pretty easy, or what?
Yeah, but I don't feel I can mention any names. I have lots of stories. I don't know.
Well, you can...
Well, okay, this is one, and I'm not going to tell you who it is, but we were doing this show up in Sturgis. One of the guys, he got pretty drunk. You know, he was completely out of it. And we went through the show, and he's just basically played one note all night. I guess they had to duck him down. Anyways, we managed to get through the show all right. At the end of the encore, I look over and he's like, ready to go back on stage, and he passed out, sleeping. So somebody got him back up. We get him back on the stage. Anyways, all that to say, they did a write-up of the show the next day, and it was a picture of this person, and his eyes were shut, playing because he was asleep, and the caption said, he was really into the show last night. The guest put on a hell of a performance. I was like, none of us, the rest of us weren't in the picture. It was awesome.
It was a glowing review.
It was just perfect. It
So was
so
he.
rock and roll.
500,000 motorcycles.
Yeah. I see
We
it.
played at Sturgis too.
Yeah, I mean, I've been that guy before. I'm not gonna lie to you. I've you know.